San Diego with third place finish down there, and with the result, were you pleased, or it's kind of you expect more out of it?
We definitely expected to be faster than we were. Obviously, we've really been looking at the results nationwide and trying to get a feel for where we were with other crews. So we did really think that the top 4 crews were going to be within a second of each other. The plan had been to watch the race on Saturday. You pay your $10 that you didn't know you had to pay to be able to watch the races that were free last year. And then as soon as you got on, that's when they informed you that the server had crashed because so many people were trying to get on. So, the only thing I got really during the race were text messages from Coach McConnell, who was there, watching it unfold on the Jumbotron. And then, of course, after the fact, they kind of talked about, how things went. We looked at their split times. We have this great new GPS tracking device that really gives us an idea of what our splits are over 500. And I think that experience is going to help make us a little bit faster in understanding how and what we need to do to follow in our game plan. I would say that Saturday the girls did not race well. They may have come off the line first, but the observation was that University of Central Oklahoma had open water on us at 500 meters. And I don't think any of us expected that. I don't think they were prepared for that. So, the time that they posted definitely left a lot to be desired. It put us within, maybe 1/10 of a second or more with UCSB, who was in Heat 2. And so we really expected in the grand finals to hopefully at least take second. And the importance, of course, finishing in front of UCSD. I think on Sunday, the perception, of course, was that because we got to see the race on Sunday, we led for the first 1,000 meters, and I think the perception was that we improved. But I think one of the things that I really thought I saw was that University of Central Oklahoma had some problems in the first 500, and come to find out, their speaker system down the boat stopped working at the start, and it took the coxswain the better part of 500 meters to get it working. But boy, when she got it working, they took off. So they definitely cleared the field somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500. And of course, we finished about a second or so behind UCSB. And the girls were disappointed, right? I think they were disappointed on Saturday, and I think the main focus was that you still have to beat the crews in your own region, and so it was really important to see UCSD. We saw UCSD at Cascade Sprints, and I would say beat them in the heats, pretty substantially. In the finals, we were only 1 second off, and so we really assumed when we saw them that they were going to be back on their game, rowing in their home course, their own boats, and I think we were all really surprised to see that they had fallen off the mark. It puts us in a poor situation. Of course, now the rankings will stand. UCO was beaten by Barry University by 13 seconds, and they're 2 crews that will not see each other for the remainder of the season. And so on the books, regardless of how much faster you get over the course of the season, we'll never know what that gap is because they won't race. There will be some other cross-region ranking. Nova Southeastern, who's been the one crew that's been closest to Barry University, will be traveling to Sierras to race University of Central Oklahoma, and that will give us a better idea of really our relative speed across the nation. In the CRCA polls, I think we started at number 4, moved to number 5. I imagine this week we'll probably move to number 6. In the NC2A West region ranking, we will sit solidly at the number 2 spot, right behind Western Washington.
Speaking of Washington, you guys, a big event last week in San Diego, another big event at the Covered Bridge Regatta in Eugene this weekend, facing Washington again, some other familiar schools, but another big important event for you guys.
Well, I think we saw last year, really San Diego was going to be that first marker for ranking, and they put their second 8 in that race. And so, of course, it didn't give us any results whatsoever. And then the next time we see Western Washington isn't 3 weeks later until regional championships. And so I think you have to imagine they're surprised when we beat them. And then, of course, a week later we go back and race them at Whereas, and they beat us. Well, this year, John does not want any surprises, and so what you'll see is that we raced at Cascade Sprints, and if we had not had a conflict for, remaining home for the sports auction, we would have probably raced up in Vancouver, Washington, of which they were planning on going. When we pulled out, so did they. They went to the Husky Invite, and any racing that happened north of the California border last weekend, it was windy. And so most of the races were shortened to 1,000, 1,500. And so I won't say that they had a weekend off, but they definitely didn't have a weekend where the van left at 3 a.m. on Thursday to catch a plane to San Diego out of San Francisco, and then of course getting in at 11:30 on Sunday night. I think seeing Western on a regular basis, I think that kind of pressure helps kids really prepare so that there's no mystery. And you'll see pretty regularly if we're improving on the things that are important, or if there's 4 seconds that distances the crews. If we're all getting faster at the same rate, then there won't be any surprises. But it's like performance testing. If you performance test once a week, then the attitude really becomes it's just another 2K. And that's what we saw at Nationals last year. The kids said, Coach, it's just another 2K. And so I think it'll be good to see Western this weekend. We'll see a couple of big D1 programs. Again, University of Portland racing against Santa Clara for the automatic qualifier. So we're seeing more and more Division I schools coming. Seattle Pacific will be there. They're also in the West region. And then there's a few other local crews that will be showing up as well.
I was looking over the notes this morning, and it said something about are you guys trying something new this weekend? Splitting, I guess, a group in half and having like an A and B, or maybe I misread the notes wrong. But
well, Covered Bridge is a little different. It's a little tiny regatta that's turned into a two-day extravaganza, and it's probably one of the most beautiful courses that I've seen. It's completely buoyed. Potential for 8 lanes, and that's what we see in some of the really big races. In the women's varsity 8, I think there's 8 teams across, and it's one of those courses that you can literally see the start all the way to about 1,500 meters, and then if you run really fast all the way to the edge of the docks, you can see the final 500. But the course is a bit skewed, and so there are times that when you're watching this unfold, it's a little alarming. So, the way that we row our typical lineups, we take our top 8 athletes and we put them in the 1B, or the varsity 8. We take our next 4 athletes and we put it in the ranking 4. And then standard across the board is that there's always what we call the 2B8 and the 2B4. So it's the idea of preparing the ladies that are going to hopefully come up into those 1B programs the following year. Because it is a mixed regatta, for Division II, the field is an 8 and a 4. In Division III, it's 2 8s. In Division I, it's 2 8s and a 4, which is why you see lots of interesting, described events for regatta racing, because everybody is trying to get the best bang for their buck. You have to get the ranking in order to be able to meet the minimum qualifications to even be considered for the national championship. So that's what will unfold this weekend.
And so is this a place that you probably just do this just because of the course, or is this something that you do at other regattas as well?
It's pretty standard across the field. So if you look at Cascade Sprints, if you look at San Diego Crew Classic, everybody calls it a little bit something different, but people have a hard time of letting go of the way that what they called it versus what the NC2A calls it. So you have your top 8, you have your next 8, then you have your 4 athletes in Division I. And when you go to the national championships, you race those 3 events to create a cumulative points for the trophy. So just because you win the 8 doesn't necessarily mean you win the national championships, because we've seen a number of schools not win the 8 but do really well in the 2B8 and the 4 and come home with that big trophy.
Great.
Thanks, guys.